Oh, thank God, it seems like Nazca was a fluke of sorts. I mean, hey, at least so far Ghibli has batting 1 for 2. Patsu is a young orphan in some Welsh-inspired mining town who, one night, catches a girl that falls from the sky. The airship that she was being held on was attacked by pirates, and she was only saved because of her magical necklace. Patsu, meanwhile, is the son of a father who once sighted the legendary floating city of Laputa. In an effort to prove his father's claims true, Patsu dreams of one day finding it himself. Almost immediately upon the girl introducing herself as Sheeta, the two are assailed by those very same pirates, and together with the town are able to escape them, only to run into the government officials who also want Sheeta and her necklace. The two soon fall into the mines below, run into an old coot who spouts world-building words at them, and then Sheeta explains her situation. She was born of royal blood from Laputa, and her necklace is the key to finding and controlling it, which is why the government, helmed by a Colonel Muska, want her and it. Immediately after saying this, they're both captured by Muska. Patsu is let go after Sheeta is forced to lie to him, but is soon found by the pirates from the start, the Dola gang, led by Dola, and quickly joins them to save Sheeta and find Laputa. Sheeta, meanwhile, inadvertently helps Muska in awakening an ancient robot that fell from Laputa long ago, and it helps her escape Muska's clutches and get reunited with Patsu, albeit at the cost of the necklace, which leads both parties to Laputa. After some shenanigans and a tense sequence of flying, Patsu and Sheeta make it to Laputa and discover that it's truly a dead civilization, completely overtaken by nature. Eventually, the two are discovered by Muska, who captures Sheeta and takes control of Laputa. Sheeta manages to take back the necklace that controls the dangerous city. Patsu catches up to them, and then the two activate a self-destruct sequence that obliterates Laputa's weaponry and causes it to float endlessly into the sky. Thankfully, the Dola gang and our two heroes escape, and both fly off into the sunset with the world once again at peace. Now that summary took a long time and seemed to have a lot of moving parts, but really, it's only about as complicated as an Uncharted game. The heroes meet, start going after a treasure or lost city, and are assailed by various factions that want the same thing. It's a bit different in that Sheeta doesn't want to go to Laputa, but Patsu certainly does, so it still fits. And that's kind of the movie's biggest problem. It thinks it's so much bigger and grander than it is, when in reality, Castle in the Sky is just a Saturday morning adventure cartoon with a Ghibli twist. That twist is very much welcome. The atmosphere, quality of animation, and score are some of the best parts of the movie, but unfortunately, a lot of the runtime is taken up with the minutia of this world that doesn't really do anything for me. In some ways, this has the same issue as Nazca. Too much focus on world building. That said, what saves this movie is the strength of its characters. While they aren't deep by any means, each of them is exceedingly likable by the end of the film, even the stupid henchmen of the Dola gang. Patsu and Sheeta together form a very strong emotional core and act well off of each other. Both are equally determined, but Patsu has a very excitable boyish energy, while Sheeta is more reserved and cautious, and that dynamic is set right in their meet cute. Patsu borrows Sheeta's necklace and jumps off the roof, expecting it to catch him, and when it doesn't, he falls right through the lower roof below, and the instability soon makes Sheeta fall on top of him. That's a great moment for both characters, as it shows the dynamic and introduces Patsu's core characteristic of an eagerness to understand things that are unknown to him. Patsu himself is a very strong character exactly because of this. Even though he's just a child, he's extremely resourceful and doesn't freak out or hesitate in protecting Sheeta from the Dola gang, using all of the knowledge he has about how the mining town's different mechanisms work to his advantage, like detaching the train cars and, barring that, forcing those detached cars to hit the brakes. Then, when he and Sheeta fall into the mines and Sheeta starts worrying because the light of her necklace begins to fade, Patsu is calm as he lights a lantern. Overall, he's just a fun protagonist, and Sheeta plays extremely well off of him. And while Sheeta is incredibly adorable, Patsu's design really needed that likable standout personality to make up for it, and it obviously received that. Speaking of design, while I don't want to dwell on it for too long, I will say that I thought they were boring for the most part. As I mentioned, Sheeta is adorable, but I also like the Dola gang's outrageous color choice, and the robot design is absolutely iconic, but other than those, none of the designs really struck me. And while I said that the worst part of the movie was its excessive world building, I'll at least say that it was done much better here than in Nazca. In that movie, a lot of the world building went to waste because it wasn't used at all anywhere throughout the movie. This type of world building is fine in a novel or TV show because of the extended amount of time you have to both use it eventually and also to incorporate actually relevant details on top of that. For a movie, we really only have time for what's relevant without any flavor. It's a shame, but that's all we have time for if we want to focus on having good characters and decent pacing. And that's exactly what Castle in the Sky does. It tells exactly what we need to know, the various myths surrounding Laputa and its power. Patsu has the story of his father finding it, Shita was taught about it by her parents before they died, and Muska monologues about it constantly. The only part that probably could have been cut is the whole bit in the mines about Ethereum, called Value Site in the Japanese version. We don't need that, and the scene really drags down the pacing, which is the other biggest issue with the film. Instead of a traditional 3-act structure, this movie has 4 acts. The opening in the mining town, which ends when Patsu and Shita fall into the mines. The second act, which ends after Shita's escape from Muska thanks to the Laputa robot. The third act, which is the airship shenanigans, and then the harrowing entry into Laputa and Muska's attack. And then the fourth act is Laputa itself. Each of these acts begin with a very slow dialogue and exposition heavy sequence, and then an extended action scene that feels like it goes on for 5 minutes too long. Granted, individually, I like several of these sections and sequences. I love the first act in its entirety. It's really fun, really goofy, and definitely embodies the Saturday morning cartoon vibe. The second act is really boring. The action scene at the end with the robot is very visually striking and highlights one of Studio Ghibli's best aspects, which is emotional storytelling through visuals almost exclusively, in this case being the tragedy of the robot's death in protecting Shita. However, the mine exposition is boring, and everything between that and the robot awakening is boring politics and exposition that could have been told better through visuals in some form or another. The third act is also really good, though extremely out of place. The scene with Patsu and Shita talking in the observation booth is really great. It's just the two talking about Shita's insecurities about the whole situation and felt very natural and was welcome. However, almost a full 10 minutes preceding that were taken up by goofy Dola Gang shenanigans, which, while it added flavor to the Dola Gang, was unnecessary and severely harmed the pacing of the plot. Finally, the fourth act is a mixed bag. On the one hand, the tension is pretty palpable as Muska takes control of Laputa, and it comes down to him with a gun against 2 children, but Muska himself is first a villain, which I thought Ghibli didn't do outright, but I guess I was wrong, and is also a bad villain. He reveals that he's also of Laputan blood, and proclaims himself as Laputa's king, which...
Okay.
Was his entire motivation just bragging rights then? He never says what he intends to do with the power of Laputa's weapons, so I'm left at a loss. As well, Patsu somehow figures out exactly how Laputa works and how they're going to beat Muska extremely quickly and with little communication as to how he knows this based on what the audience has been told. And then they blow up Laputa with, quote, a spell of destruction, which is so vague that I don't know why they trusted it. Like, couldn't it have been a weapon of some kind? Like it destroys Laputa's enemies? How do they know it was a spell of self-destruction? And then the two just so happen to land on the roots of the floating city, and then just happen to find their glider in perfect condition with no obstructions to the open sky to escape.
Oh, there's a big surprise!
To end my thoughts on the pacing, I would say that the movie gets worse as it goes on. The wonder of the adventure fizzles out, and it follows up one of the most engrossing sequences in the film with one of the goofiest and least relevance, to name an example of just how lopsided each act is with the next, which made getting through the film a bit rough at several points. Overall, Castle in the Sky is a marked improvement of Studio Ghibli's proto-first outing in Nausicaa. It features a strong cast of characters, a decent adventure, and plenty of fun to go around without getting too heavy into the drama of it all. While the designs were hit or miss, the standouts really stood out. The music was excellent once again, and Ghibli once again brings their A-game with animation quality. Its pacing and world building are what holds it back from being truly excellent, but if you can get past that or are able to watch it in chunks to alleviate some of the pacing issues, then you might like it more. Up next, we have the first film not to be directed by Miyazaki, instead being Isao Takahata's first foray into the catalog with Grave of the Fireflies. And man, I can't wait to bawl my eyes out.